UFC London took place this past weekend, and it was one of the worst cards we've had in a very long time. Lerone Murphy versus Movsar Evloev was our main event, and it was a very good main event. It was a necessary main event, especially since featherweight has been clogged for the past few years, with Ilia Topuria moving up to lightweight, with Volk losing, and with Diego Lopez getting a second title shot within a 1-year span after winning just one fight. When you have guys like Movsar Evloev and Lerone Murphy who are on very high win streaks in the featherweight division, this was a necessary number one contender fight. It was a good fight, but it doesn't even matter because at the post-fight press conference, it was confirmed, well, not really confirmed, but Dana White was not so sure still about the winner, Movsar Evloev, getting a title shot. And then whenever they asked about Gene Silva getting a title shot, a guy who's 1-1 in his last two, he just got knocked out by the guy that Volk just beat. When Dana was asked about him, he gave the, let's see, we'll see what happens response. And so this main event didn't even matter. We also had one of the worst fights that we've seen in a very, very long time on this card. We had Michael Page versus Sam Patterson. Now, who wanted to see Michael Page versus Sam Patterson? Sam Patterson was winning fights at 170. Michael Page had just knocked out, I believe, the number 10 contender in Jared Cannonier. Well, not knocked out, but he beat the number 10 contender in Jared Cannonier at middleweight. And so MVP is having success at middleweight. Sam Patterson is not even a top 15 fighter at welterweight. Why are they fighting each other? This matchmaking made no sense. And the fight made even less sense, to be honest. These guys did not engage one another. It was one of the most boring things we've ever seen. They both probably deserve a pay cut rather than a pay raise. And it was a horrible, horrible fight. Michael Page coming out with that classic karate stance to where he doesn't engage and he just waits to be attacked and he just counters. And then you had Sam Patterson, who was trying to find him, but just couldn't find him. He couldn't attack well enough. And so this fight was really, really bad. But it's not the last of the bad stuff on this card. And then we had CLD versus Roman Dolidze. Now, CLD, if you want to separate yourself from the pack, if you want to be the new blood in this division, if you want to be champ within the next year or two, please finish Roman Dolidze. Please 30-26, 30-27 Roman Dolidze. Please do not go to a 29-28 decision with Roman Dolidze getting dominated on the ground, letting Roman Dolidze take your back, get into back mount, display extremely dominant positions against you. Please show levels against Roman Dolidze, CLD, if you want to be a top dog in this division. And that's not what we saw. You know, CLD is a sick fighter on the feet. He's an amazing fighter on the feet. He's shown that in the past. I rate his last win against Marco Tulio very highly. But he's got some big holes in his game if he's putting on a performance like that against Roman Dolidze. You have guys like Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, who dominated Roman Dolidze, who finished Roman Dolidze. And then Fluffy went on to get finished himself by Sean Strickland, who's got 2 losses to DDP, who in DDP lost to Chimaev, got dominated by Chimaev. CLD, please finish Roman Dolidze. I mean, even CLD against some of these other guys, like a Brendan Allen, like an RDR, like a Fluffy, like a Strickland, like an Imavov. Actually, CLD versus Imavov might actually be a sick fight. That might actually be a great fight. But still, like, if you want to be champion in the next few years, that's a big hole that you need to fill to have success against these upper echelon middleweights. I was hoping for more. I was hoping to see CLD go in there and finish a Roman Dolidze, but he's a great fighter on the feet. And I know he can work on his takedown defense. But another really bad fight, an underwhelming fight. One more fight I want to speak on was Mantis. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name versus Tricoli. Watching this, by the way, I am by no means am I a fighter. I've never been a fighter, nor do I want to be a fighter. But watching Tricoli fight was one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen. This dude's an animal. Like, the way he looks, he's like 6'5". He's got the wingspan. He's got some of the longest arms I've ever seen. Probably the most strange physique I've ever seen. This guy looks like he could wrap his arms around anybody. But watching him fight was so strange and frustrating. He had almost no moments on the feet, which is understandable. Mantis looked really, really good on the feet. He looked very dynamic and very cool on the feet. But Tricoli, with his telephone pole arms, couldn't wrap his arms around Mantis, couldn't get him to the ground, had barely any success in the grappling. Tricoli got dropped, I believe, in the second round by an elbow in the clinch. He got beat up pretty bad in the early 2 rounds. He gassed in the 3rd round, or Mantis gassed in the 3rd round. Mantis has some real cardio issues coming in this fight. Could be UFC jitters. It was his debut. Could have just been a crazy adrenaline dump. But he gassed big time against Tricoli, who is now, I mean, he might be 0-5 now, or 0-4. But how is this dude still getting fights? How is the UFC still giving this guy fights? This dude went 0-4, got finished in I believe 3 of them. And on the other hand, you got guys like Jordan Vucenic, who comes into the UFC, puts on a sick performance, and then he loses his next one, and they cut him. I hope they bring Vucenic back, because Vucenic is sick. I love Vucenic. I mean, you could trade Shamrock and Tricoli for Vucenic. Release Shamrock, release Tricoli, bring back Vucenic, and yeah. So that's another strange fight that played out in this card, but it was a fun fight for a lot of it. Then we had Mario Pinto versus Felipe Franco. Felipe Franco is a late replacement for Mick Parkin. Felipe Franco was replacing Mick Parkin in what was going to be the battle of the most boring heavyweights in UFC history. The most boring fit heavyweights in UFC history. Mario Pinto's a good fighter. He was going to be facing Mick Parkin. And in this fight against Felipe Franco, he probably outweighed Franco by a good 20 to 30 pounds. And he really didn't do much in this fight. He won the fight with control and with moments in the striking, but he really didn't separate himself against what really is a light heavyweight in Felipe Franco. Franco could make light heavyweight. He shouldn't necessarily be at heavyweight. But this was another very boring fight, and this was the first fight on the card to where I was like, is this card actually going to suck? Because this card had some good momentum going into this fight. There was a few finishes before this, some fun fights, but this fight was just a bore fest. I almost fell asleep during this fight. Now, although there was some really, really bad fights on this card, there was also some good ones. It wasn't all terrible. You had, in the main event, I thought Evloev versus Lerone Murphy. I thought that was a fun fight. I thought Luke Riley versus Michael Oswald Jr. was a fun fight. I thought Luke looked really, really good. He didn't get the finish that he wanted, but I thought he looked really, really good, and he proved that he could go a solid 3 rounds. And then Ewell Baranetsky, after giving us fight of probably the past 5 years against Ibo Aslan, he came in here and he KO'd Austin Lane, made quick work of Austin Lane, who, you know, Baranetsky's not the first guy to do that for sure in the UFC. How bad is Rebelis de Spain? But anyway, he got knocked out by by Iwo Baranitsky in this fight. Fun fight. You had Danny Silva. I'm looking out. I got my eyes on this Danny Silva guy. He went in there and knocked out the Pink Panther, Curtis Campbell. Everybody was riding Curtis Campbell's nuts like he was the next Paddy Pimblett, like he was the next Darren Till or something like that. And he got knocked out in the second round. But I don't get it twisted. Curtis Campbell's a good fighter. I like Curtis Campbell. I have no reason to not like him. But he got knocked out by Danny Silva in this fight, and I rate Danny Silva as well. He went to a decision against Kevin Vallejos. I believe that's his only loss in the UFC. Other than that, he is 3-1 in the UFC with that one loss being to Kevin Vallejos. But going to a decision with Kevin Vallejos after what we saw Kevin Vallejos do to Josh Emmett the other weekend, taking him out, I believe, inside 2 minutes. I rate Danny Silva very highly. And then we had an amazing fight between Mason Jones and Axel Sola. Again, Mason Jones, he keeps finding himself in these fights where he gets hurt early. He gets hurt bad early. He gets dropped. And then he comes back to sort of outdog or outgrit his opponent and ends up dominating his opponent. And by the end of the fight, his opponent is extremely bloody or his opponent is finished by the end of it. Then you had Nathaniel Wood versus Lucien Kita. These guys looked very, very fast in this fight. I don't believe that Lucien Kita deserved a Nathaniel Wood fight. Since coming up from bantamweight, Nathaniel Wood has gone 5-1, and he's on a 4-fight winning streak in the featherweight division. Even before this fight, he beat Jose Delgado. I believe that after a fight like that, I believe that Nathaniel Wood should have gotten a ranked contender, and I don't believe Kita deserved a Nathaniel Wood fight after coming in and having the opportunity of a lifetime against a legend like Patricio Pitbull in missing weight. And then even after that, Lucien Kita was walking up to Pitbull being like, take the fight. Like, you're really not going to take the fight? No, dude. Nobody knows who you are. You can't just come on in your first fight in the UFC. You have a fight against Pitbull and miss weight and then get upset that he's not going to take the fight against you. You've got everything to gain. He has everything to lose. And so, little rant, but Lucien Kita should have fought a Daniel Pineda or 30 to 40 range featherweight before having a Nathaniel Wood. They went 7-5 over the course of this event. And so, not the best night for the UK. You had Brando Pericic make quick work of Louis Sutherland. It was a fun fight while it lasted. Louis let his dog out. He tried to get the finish, but Pericic was just too much for him. And another L for the UK. Then you had Shamrock versus Al Sawadi. Shamrock was saying some pretty crazy things in the buildup of this fight against Al Sawadi. Some crazy things on social media. And then at the weigh-ins, Shamrock put hands on Al Sawadi, and he couldn't replicate that same success in this fight. He had some success on the feet. He had some good moments, but overall, I believe that Al Sawadi won all 3 rounds. Al Sawadi was putting on a Volkanovski-esque performance, except he was moving forward for 80% of this fight. Yes, I think Al Sawadi won all 3 rounds. He landed a lot of good punches. Of course he did. He had a lot of good combinations, even while switching stances. He was landing that rushing switch stance combination. I just made that up. And Shamrock was, for a lot of the time, just wilting to the pressure of Al Sawadi. And Shamrock is now 0-2 in the UFC. And maybe they'll give him another shot. Maybe they won't. Like I said earlier, I hope they trade Shamrock and Tricoli for Vucenic. Get those guys out of there. Let's get Vucenic back in the UFC. And I'll be a happy man. And then we had Chanel Dyer. She took out Ravina Oliveira inside 2 rounds. Fun finish, fun fighter. Now that was the UFC London card 2026 recap. There's something about these cards. There's something about these cards over, say, the past year or even 2 years that are leaving a lot to be desired. These cards are leaving us with some aspect of the card just being disappointing. Whether it be a hyped up main event, whether it be a stacked card that doesn't perform, whether it be just poor matchmaking and poor card building as it is. You know, them releasing these Angela Hill main events, these Johnny Walker main events, these Gilbert Burns type main events, these low 10 to 15 being in main events should be a thing of the past. I believe that main events of all kinds should be reserved for top 5 fighters. I believe that all main events should be either title fights or top 5, if not number 1 contender fights. That's going to be in another video coming up, but just something about these events, man. They've been really, really disappointing. The UFC needs to make a lot of different changes to fix a lot of their problems that they have today. And I want to see that happen. But that was my recap of UFC London, Evloev versus Murphy. If you liked it, please like and please subscribe. Thank you.